click Xcode, go to file, a new project. When I select project, is going to create a folder. So all the classes you are going to create, all the assets, everything inside that folder. So basically the project means app. So I'm going to click project. I'm going to expand this so that you can see better. I have two sections to choose from, iOS and Mac OS X. So I'll be using application. Under application, I just choose command line tool because I don't need any kind of interface to show the basic structure of Objective-C. That's why I chose command line tool. Click next. So I'm going to call this primitive variables. So you can call whatever you like. So this should not contain any space between those letters and should not start with numbers. Organization name, I'm using my name. You can use whatever you want. Company identifier, basically the website, the company's, your company website reverse domain name. Bundle identifier has been created for us, and the type foundation is good. Click next. So need to tell where to save that folder. I'm going to choose desktop. Click create. Okay, so here is the basic structure of Xcode. So you can see the basic main four sections here: on the left, on the right, on the middle, on the bottom. So I'm going to select main.m file. So you can see some code here. Okay, let's explore each section here. On the left hand side, that's a navigation section. On the bottom, you have a debug area section. On the right, there is a utilities section. On the middle, you can see the standard editor section. So these three sections, like at the top, bottom, right and left, can be toggled on and off using these three buttons here. Navigator, back on. Debug area, back on. Utilities, back on. So whenever you need more screen real estate, you can just hide them all so you have more space to work with. So if you want anything back, you can just do this. Click on any of these buttons. It's going to bring that appropriate section back on. Okay, so on the top you can see like a play button on there. So what's going to happen when you click on that button, is going to run this application. It's going to build first. You can see build succeeded message, then it's going to run. If you want to stop running this application, you can click that button before making any of the changes in your code. And on the middle of that section, you can see a LED display. On the left hand side, is going to show you the current status of the application when you start running it. So on the right side, you see no issues right now because this application does not have any issues right now. But if you have any issues or warning or error, you can see there. The error symbol is going to be red circle. The warning symbol is going to be the yellow triangle. Okay, so before diving into this, I would like to show you a couple of shortcuts here. So the first one is to bring the navigator section back on using command and hit 1. So command 1 is going to bring this navigation section. The main thing is a project navigator where you see all the files and folders here. So that's going to bring this section back on. And if you want to comment any of that code in your file, you can simply select the lines and hit command front slash. That's going to comment all the lines you have selected. So that's a really handy one. And one more thing I want to point out too, and I'm going to just mess this code a little bit like that. Okay, so how do I bring it back to the proper alignment? So there's a awesome shortcut for that. You can select the specific block, or you can select whole the code and hold the control and hit I. So that's going to re-indent everything properly. Okay, and if you go to Xcode and preferences, go to fonts and colors section, you have multiple styles here for your code. The one I chose right now is presentation, so you can see better. It's going to be a big font. You can choose whatever you like here. You have a dark background and bright text, or dark text with bright white color, so it's up to you. I'm going to be sticking with presentation for this video. So the one more thing is worth pointing out here is the text editing tab. In the first one, the line numbers. So if you don't see the line numbers in the gutter here, just select the checkbox, so bring that back on. It's really handy when you are working with a huge code. Okay, that's all I want to tell you there. Okay, let's dive into that code here. So we have some comment on the top, we have import statement, and we have a method. This import is like a foundation framework, so that needs to be included each and every project, because it has the basic code functionalities like ns array, ns string, everything is there. So if you don't include that, you'll have a compile error. So once you import that, we have a method. It's called main. The name of the method is main. If you're from Java or C# or C++, when you compile that code, so the main function is going to be called first. The same thing in here. When you run this application, this method is going to be called first. Okay, so you declared the method called main, but where it's called, so it's something like its default, so for most of the languages. So when you run this application, main method is going to be called first. Okay, so what is integer? That is the return data type. What kind of value this method is going to return, in this case integer. So that's why you have a return keyword, and it returns the integer, like 0, that's integer. Okay, so it takes 2 arguments, so we don't have to worry about this right now. And it adds symbol auto release pool. It's something with memory management. The code we are going to write inside this block. Okay, so I'm going to uncomment this out. I'm going to run this. Okay, you can see the string there, hello world. So Apple has written for us. Okay, before going further, I would like to show you this slide here. Data types. So Xcode or Objective-C has 2 types of, like 2 different data types. One is primitive, one is complex objects. So in this slide, I'm going to talk about primitive data types, something like integer, float, boolean, long, and so on. On the right hand side, you can see how it's declared. Like it starts with integer, int keyword, and the variable name, it could be anything. It should not start with numbers and special characters except underscore. And you just assign 10 to that. And the same thing like float y equal to 12.5 and bool, and in this case we just use bool and all uppercase, and is valid, that's a variable name, and we are not using a true or false, and most of the languages use true or false for boolean property, but in Objective-C yes or no. So there's something really important to understand. So what is the difference between primitive data types and our complex object data type? Primitive variables, they hold the value. In this case, integer x equals 10. X variable holds the value 10. So it does not point to anywhere else, it just holds it. So I would like to show you some simple demo about primitive variable. Okay, just minimize this off, go back to Xcode. So I'm going to comment this out using command /. Okay, so I'm going to create a couple of integers. Integer x equals, let's create some random number here, 46. Integer y equals 76, something like that. So I created two primitive variables. So I see two warnings here on the line, each line, and you can see these two warnings up there. So you can just simply click that to see what is complaining about unused variable x and unused variable y. Yeah, of course I can ignore this because I know I'm going to use these variables here, so you can ignore it. And I'm going to create another variable. It's going to hold the result of x and y. First I'm going to add xy, and then I'm going to multiply x and y. So these two results. So I'm first add xy equals x plus y, like that. So I want to output the result with some string in output box. So of course the same thing like nslog, I can use nslog. Here I want to point out two things. nslog is something like, if you're from Java, it's system.out.println. If you're from C# background, console.writeLine. For JavaScript, console.log. If you're from ActionScript background, it's trace, something like that. So nslog, when you type that, you have a dynamic typing hint. So it's going to suggest you this is what you're looking for. So you can use, as soon as you see that pop-up box, you can use up and down arrow key in your keyboard and going back and forth, so until you find what you want. So yeah, I want nslog. I can hit return to get that code block. So I'm going to use at. It knows like, oh, you're looking for a string? Yes, for sure. I'm just hit return again. So I would need to put semicolon end of that line. So I'm going to write some string in here. The result of x plus y is add xy. This will work in most of the languages, but is not going to work in Xcode, because when you want to insert any value that's coming from any variable, want to put inside the string, you have to use placeholder. You always have to use placeholder to inject some value inside the string. So how do I use placeholder? First I have to just separate this with a comma. So this is a string, this is the variables, those hold the values we are expecting basically. So I'm going to start to create a placeholder here. Placeholders always start with a percentage symbol, and what kind of variable I would like to add in here. In this case, this one, this is the integer data type. So for integer I use I. If it is a float, you can use F. So for the integer I can use I there. Command yes to control, like save that Xcode, and Command R to run this application. Yeah, so I haven't used that, so I just simply comment that out and Command R to run this application. The result of x plus y is 122. Perfect. So I'm going to, you may think like, how to add more than one variable here to put some other, the value of that variable in here. That's simple. So I'm going to add one more, multiply x and y here, x star y. I want to add this next to that. So and the result of x star y is, I'm going to hide this to see more space in here. I can just make comma there and mul x. So the way it's taking that values, so if the way it's taking the values, this is something like percentage I is going to grab this value. I have to use another placeholder here, same thing like percentage to start with, and it's integer. This is going to take the first variable's value, this is going to take the second variable's value respectively. It's going like that. So Command S to save that and Command R to run that. So the result of x plus y is 122 and the result of x star y is 3496. Works perfect.